The Midnight Knocker. I have never believed in ghosts or supernatural things. But that night, I had to change my mind forever. I am Hong, an ordinary office worker in Hanoi. Because of my busy work, I rented a small apartment in the suburbs for convenience in going to work. The building was old and few people lived there, but the price was cheap so I didn't care much. It all started on a rainy night. I was sitting working late at night. The sound of the wind whistling through the window was really scary. The clock struck 12 midnight. Right at that moment, I heard a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I was startled. Who would come at this hour? I walked to the door, looked through the peephole. It was empty outside. I thought I had misheard, and went back to my desk. But less than a minute later. Knock, knock, knock. This time, I was sure I wasn't imagining it. I opened the door and looked out into the dark hallway. No one was there. A creepy feeling began to take over. I closed the door, locked it, and went back to my chair. But just then, my phone received a text message. Open the door. My throat tightened. There was no sender. A chill ran down my spine. My hands trembled as I texted back. Who is it? No reply. I began to panic. Was someone playing a prank on me? Gathering my courage, I opened the door again. But this time, I saw a woman standing a few steps away from me. She was wearing a wet white dress, her long hair covering half her face. Her empty eyes stared at me. I was speechless and stepped back. Have you seen my child? Her voice was as cold as the night wind. I froze, not knowing what to say. The woman took a step forward, but suddenly, she disappeared. The door slammed shut strangely. I was terrified, my heart pounding. Searching through my memory, I remembered that the security guard once told me that many years ago, a woman living in the apartment across from me jumped to her death with her son. Since then, that apartment has been abandoned, no one dared to live there. In the following days, the knocking on the door continued. Every night at exactly 12 o'clock. But I never dared to open the door again. And then, one night, I decided to leave the apartment forever. But before I left, I received a final message. Midnight, hey everyone, I'm Storyteller. I know you're using this video to relax or fall asleep, so be sure to like and subscribe. What time are you watching? Leave a comment below. Now, chill. 020, I used to rent a small house in the suburbs. It was old but spacious, and most importantly, the rent was cheap. 035, everything was fine until I noticed something strange. There was no basement in the floor plan the landlord gave me. But right in the kitchen, there was a door that led down to a dark staircase. 050, I called the landlord to ask. He was silent for a moment, then said in a strange voice, just don't go down there. 105, I asked why, but he just repeated the same thing and hung up. 115, of course, that only made me more curious. 125, the next night, as I slept, I heard a sound coming from underneath the floor. A soft, steady tapping. 140, I sat up. It sounded like someone was tapping on the basement door from below. 150, I slowly walked to the kitchen, stood in front of the basement door, and listened. 205, this time, there was no tapping. Just silence, too much. 215, I went back to bed, trying to convince myself that it was just the old plumbing. 230, but on the third night, things got even stranger. 240, I was awakened by another noise, footsteps, right under the floor. 255, I froze. No way. There was no one in that basement, right? 310, the next morning, I decided to check it out. 320, I opened the basement door. An old wooden staircase led down into darkness. 335, I turned on my flashlight and slowly walked down. The space down there was damp, the concrete walls bare and nothing but dust. 3:50, but then I saw it. 4 o'clock on the opposite wall was another door. An old wooden door, with a rusty lock. 4:10, I didn't remember seeing it from above. It was like it had just appeared. 4:25, I walked closer. Something wasn't right. 4:35, when I reached for the lock. I heard breathing. 4:45, not mine. 4:50, from behind the door. 4:55, then a hoarse voice whispered. 5 o'clock, don't open it. 5:10, I didn't wait any longer. I ran up the stairs, slammed the door, and never went down to the basement again. 5:20, but that night. I heard a knock. 5:30, this time, it came from right behind the kitchen door.